Hey everyone, welcome to Bruin Dash, the UCLA football show on Dash Sports. There's a lot of breaking news going on right now in the college football world, but first off, the Pac-12 is reportedly delaying its season from fall of 2020 to spring potentially. And then there's a lot of ramifications that could go along with that. We'll be discussing them here today. My name is Sam Connon. I'm one of the hosts of Bruin Dash. I work at the Daily Bruin, UCLA student paper, as well as Bruin Report Online. And today I'm joined by Jack Perez. Jack, you want to give yourself a little intro?
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Jack Perez. I'm the sports editor at the Daily Bruin, currently covering UCLA football.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just get right into it then. As a lot of outlets are now reporting, the Pac-12 has followed suit from the Big Ten, and they are canceling the fall football season and trying to push it into the spring at the earliest. So the schedule and everything that came out a few weeks ago looks like it's probably void at this point. We'll see if they go 8 games or 10 games in the spring. But first off, just your thoughts on the issue, Jack. Do you think this was the right choice for the Pac-12 to delay the season, and why do you think they decided to do what they did?
You know what? If this wasn't the choice that they ended up coming to, they would have had to postpone the season anyways. I feel like medical experts have been telling them for a while, there's no way you can do this. There's no way you can do this. Even when they first started saying maybe you can start coming back in a little bit of capacity, I just don't see how they could have played this out with no test. And obviously the schools are worried about one thing, and that's really about PR. They really don't want to look bad in the situation. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I for the last few days, especially, this decision has felt kind of inevitable. That's even though the schedule was announced just over a week ago, there was a little glimmer of hope. But I think the thing that really put the nail in the coffin was all of the player empowerment movement. First, the We Are United in the Pac-12, and then the We Want to Play, which is between all the Power Five conferences, and over 30 players on UCLA alone who are supporting that. But
Wait,
there's demand.
are you saying that those caused this? That players saying we want to come back caused them to actually say no, we're going to shut everything down? Oh, unfortunately, my colleague Sam Connon has gone offline. I'll talk. There's no way. They had to have listened to the players. Um, you can't just say, oh, all these players are just coming in, they're saying, oh yeah, we want to play, we'll do this, we'll give you this, we'll waive these things. Obviously, some of the players wanted unions, they wanted revenue splits. There was no way that was going to happen. I don't see how that was going to happen. I think that the Pac-12 really just thought that the medical experts were in the right in the situation. Because while these are college students and college students are generally educated, I don't think you can take their word for it or what they want over the safety of everyone.
Yeah, I just think that, I mean, 5, 6 days ago, the Big Ten announced their schedule game by game. Pac-12 was just a little over a week ago that they announced every date for every game. The only thing that's changed in that time, no new medical data has come up in the last 6 days in terms of things that could derail a college football season. It's all, like you said, it's about the PR.
But is it medical?
The NCAA had a choice. It was either pour a lot of money and resources into protecting these players, part of which kind of like is catering to their demands, and the other option was punting to spring and sustaining all the amateurism and all that. And the NCAA would rather bite the bullet, eat the money, just to stick to the status quo.
There's no way. I think that while nothing has really changed in terms of the country as a whole, I think they finally started listening to the medical experts. I think that they were just kind of shoving them off to the side. While they said they've had them there for a while and they've been advising them, how they knew that they wanted this season. They knew that they wanted to earn money from these teams, whether they had fans or whether they didn't. I think finally it got to the point where the medical experts just said, it's over. We can't do this. We can't do this. Figure out a way to proceed, whether it's in spring, whether it's canceling the seasons outright this year.
You see, I disagree, because you look at the NBA bubble, which is in Florida, which is one of the biggest hotspots in the country right now. And these medical experts are giving the Pac-12 and other conferences these thresholds based on the idea that there won't be bubbles, there won't be isolation in terms of like an actual physical bubble like the NBA and NHL have. The NHL has done thousands of tests and no positives. The NBA has gone off without a hitch these last few weeks, and that's because
that's
the thing. They could if they wanted to pour the money and resources into it, and they decided that's not worth it for them. And if they don't want to pour the money and resources in, then it wouldn't be safe. You're right. But they have a choice. They had one, and they decided to kick the can down the line even further instead of committing the money and the resources to these student athletes, to their coaches, who all want to be out there.
A big problem in this as well is that the NCAA is first and foremost a business, but they also, for some reason, are just kicking the responsibility back to the conferences. If the NCAA truly wanted this season to get done, they should have had one unifying thing that really allowed the conferences to say, they just sort of said, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan that we have. We talked to all the medical experts throughout the country, gotten their opinions. We've gotten advice from all the conferences, all of the directors, and this is how we're going to proceed. But instead, they're like, yeah, each individual conference can do what they want for themselves. You got the MAC declaring a couple of days ago that they're not going to do football. At that point, it seems like everything's going to topple down. But right now, the SEC, the Big 12, the ACC are all saying, oh, we're fine. We're probably going to be going on, no problems. Whereas the other two other big conferences, the Big 10, Pac-12, are saying that it can't happen. There's no way this can happen no spring. Well, where's the disconnect there? What's happening?
I agree. The NCAA, in terms of football, there's no leadership there. There's no like continuity from conference to conference, and that is a big issue. But it's basically saying the Pac-12 doesn't want to commit the resources, whether it's their ADs, their chancellors, presidents, whoever it is who's on all of these calls have decided that it's not worth it. The SEC and the Big 12 have more money at stake and are considering pouring everything they can into making sure the season goes off. At this point, I don't think that will happen either. You have the Big 10, Pac-12, MAC. There are so many that are just kind of like going away that I don't think the SEC and Big 12 can go. But who knows? Maybe they'll go another few weeks before they caught up.
The Pac-12 and the Big 10 are just, they care about lives more, or they care about the health of their students more. And you're saying the other conferences just don't? They just, whatever. They're just players to them. They're just people that make them money. They don't care if they get sick or not?
No. I'm saying all of these schools and all of these conferences care about well, in one way or another. You can look at it in a lot of other ways and say they don't, but they care about their student athletes and they want them to be protected. The difference is the Pac-12 and Big 10 have said to go on with the season while protecting our student athletes is not worth our time, effort, and money. The SEC and Big 12 have said, well, maybe we can pour all this money and resources in and get the football season out of it. They both know, everyone knows, you can't do a college football season in any capacity, whether it's conference only, six games, 8 games, 10 games. You can't do it unless you go all in terms of the money. You have to pour so much into it to basically make these teams like their own individual bubbles on campus. And there's so many external factors there, and it takes so much planning and money, and they didn't get ahead of it. And now they're just kind of left to decide, well, I'm LSU, I'm Oklahoma. How much money do I want to put into this? And how do I convince other schools in my conference to do the same?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure we're going to see teams go rogue. We're going to see Nebraska's already said they're planning to play this season. What are they going to do? Join the Big 12, join the SEC, anything like that. But what happens if like a Pac-12 school just wants to go rogue? Are they just going to just dip out from the conference? Can schools do that? Are they allowed to?
I mean, they're
or what if an SEC
have never been in any situation like this before. There's
no one
so
has.
much going on that's
why
new.
has this not been taken care of already? Why has this not been uniform throughout the country? Because we're in the same country. It doesn't matter. If you're going from Florida to Massachusetts to play an ACC game, that's a big difference. That's a way bigger difference than UCLA having to go up to Stanford. Why is this allowed? Why is the NCAA allowing this?
I mean, if you're looking at that, I mean, you just go, into actual American politics outside of sports, and you look at states' rights and how the federal government allows states to handle their own laws. So not only does that trickle down to how different states handle coronavirus, but you also kind of get a similar situation with how the NCAA, which is the overseeing federal government here, allows different conferences to have all of their own ideas and their own policies. And the end result is a lot of discontinuity, which is expected. I understand. You're right. This should have been handled a lot earlier, but it wasn't for worse.
Well, and they have to do something. I mean, obviously, an easy way to do is just be to pay the players. They're not going to do that. They'll refuse to do that. There's no way. That's not worth their time or money. They've already made that clear.
Yeah, that's a bigger, almost a bigger decision than this single season, because that will go on forever. But we have one question from the chat from Clarissa N. If the football season gets moved to spring, which players do you think are likely to forego the season to prepare for the draft? And what effect do you think that will have on the team dynamic? Well, I think we'll just keep this just to UCLA football. There are a bunch of guys who will be draft eligible come April when the NFL draft is supposed to be. But I don't know, Jack, do you think that delaying this season to spring will kind of create any rift there?
I think that the NFL has no incentive to move any of their stuff right now for college football. So I think guys will definitely take off the season if they think that they are a lock. I think if you think you're a fourth round or above pick, you should take off this season. There's only downsides really. The NFL already has your tape for at least 2 years for most of these guys. I mean, yeah, you might get surprised with like a Joe Burrow that breaks out for a year. But if you really think that you are so valuable that you're a fourth round pick lock, at least, there's no reason to play this season. Absolutely not a single reason to. You're just risking millions of dollars.
Yeah, see, I think
I don't even know if it
was Ethan Young, who's a UCLA football coach, who a few weeks ago, almost a month ago, was putting together a whole argument of what the NCAA has to do if they do move to spring, and part of that was negotiating with the NFL to come out with a new timeline for the combine, the draft, mini camps for rookies. And call me optimistic, I guess. But I think that the NCAA and NFL will kind of come together on this, push everything back. So now that there will likely be a spring season, I think they're going to be on the same page. And I mean, both sides want to stick to the status quo. That's all this is. That's whether it's the NCAA or conferences talking about paying players, or just the schedule or the idea of moving from college to the NFL. They want to stick to the status quo. I understand. I think they'll work something out.
No way. Both are businesses, and they both care about their bottom line too much. We'll go on to the next question, but that's my last word on that.
All right. The next area that we're going to be talking about doesn't really not going to be as concrete as we thought it was, but UCLA football had its schedule announced over a week ago. Obviously, at this point, they won't be playing on those dates, but it remains to be seen if they'll be playing those teams in that order come spring or winter, whenever it ends up being. But you look at the 10-game conference-only schedule, Washington got added to it. Looked like USC was going to be the season opener. But, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they carry this over to the spring, to see if they keep with the schedule. But regardless, I feel like everyone's kind of on the same page. When college football comes back, it will be conference only, just because everything's all disoriented. So this could be a good representation of what UCLA's schedule might be. I don't know, Jack, what are your expectations looking at the 10 opponents on the schedule for UCLA?
Well, first of all, if only there was a governing body that was able to just work between the conferences and get them all set up with stuff. But that's another topic, because apparently the NCAA doesn't want to take that responsibility again. But if you're just looking period at the schedule, it's nice for UCLA that we're not facing non-conference. Have them being a non-conference opponent in any game under Chip Kelly. We've had a couple tough ones. Cincy twice. We had Oklahoma. But, Hawaii, New Mexico State, San Diego State we lost to. Those were kind of easy ones, or games that we should at least be expected to win. Going up to Washington is going to be a tough one. If the schedule stays the same, which I'm putting out there, there's no way. If they go back up to spring and they actually think things will be fixed, USC will be either the last game or the second to last game again. But if you're looking at the schedule currently, a USC week 1 game could be demoralizing to Chip Kelly's team. And I think by week 6, if they're 1-5 or 2-4, he could be on the outs pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, we can get to that later, but when it comes to the USC game, obviously, I mean, you talk to players, you talk to just students and fans. There are people who would rather be 2-10 in a regular season, but have one of those wins be against USC versus being like 7-5 and losing to USC. It matters that much to people, which is in some ways bizarre, but in others I get it. It's a big rivalry. Like you said, if things are back to normal or they're able to play a college football season in any capacity by the spring, they'll probably move that USC game to late. I think you're spot on there. But I would actually be interested to see what UCLA can do later in the season as opposed to earlier versus USC, because, I mean, they always end the season at USC, but this year, for a lot of reasons, could be different. UCLA, if they build up momentum through the course of the regular season, whether that's in the beginning or middle, leading up to that USC game, and Clay Helton maybe is on the outs at USC, then UCLA has a chance. But if UCLA and USC are opening the season against each other, I don't think there's any chance UCLA can win, whether that's in September, January, March, or next September.
Yeah, if you're looking at truly just what we have right now, you got 3 games within the first few weeks against teams that beat UCLA by double digits last season. That is a rough road to get. That is almost killer at that time. I don't see us going better than, I don't know, if they stay with the 10 game schedule, I don't see us going better than 3-7. 3-7 would be a good sign for.
I don't know about that.
I
would say, and this is optimistic, obviously, UCLA could go 6-4 with that schedule. I mean, Washington, new coach. Washington State, new coach. Colorado, new coach. USC could have a new coach if it's late in the season and Clay Helton gets fired. And you never know. These are all – UCLA has not been good the last 2 years. Everyone knows that. But at the very least, there's some consistency heading into Chip Kelly's 3rd year, whether that's at Dorian Thompson-Robinson at quarterback, even Jerry Atenara, who has sucked as the defensive coordinator. At least you have the same defensive coordinator. At least you have the same staff. There's a lot of consistency from UCLA last year to this year, whenever this year ends up being. And there are a lot of other programs who didn't get fall camp with a new head coach, or who didn't get spring camp in March or February. This year, more than ever, is going to be incredibly difficult on first-year coaches, and there are a lot of them in the Pac-12. Now, is UCLA's lack of talent in the secondary and linebacking core going to hurt them? Yeah. I'm not saying UCLA is definitely going to go 6-4, but they have a chance. They can go 7-3. There are winnable games on that schedule, considering how much of a mess the Pac-12 is. I mean, you just look at the MLB. You have the San Diego Padres, who are playing great baseball. No one really thought they were going to be amazing heading in, but when you have a shortened season with different protocols, different procedures, different schedules, anything can happen.
Well, Sam's just mad right now because his Red Sox aren't doing too well. My Padres are killing it. I still don't see it. While consistency is great, it helped build your guys up over years, and technically we looked like we were improving, especially during some games last year. That Washington State game really showed how good DTR could be. I don't know. Consistency when we have such a talent gap against the rest of the conference is killer right now. I don't see how we can make up that ground, especially since we also didn't have a spring camp. Really, we don't know about a fall camp. I mean, Chip Kelly is his 3rd year, but he's got to replace a lot of pieces if he wants to have a winning year. There's no way.
I'm just saying there's a way. It's not a lock. Nothing ever is, especially when it comes to UCLA football. But there's definitely a way. You look at the games on the schedule, you can realistically close your eyes and see UCLA winning those games.
You could do that we said that for the past 2 years as well, and it's almost just a random. You could just throw a dart at a game on the board, and I was like, oh, that's the one we could win. We beat USC 2 years ago at the Rose Bowl. How? We were a lot worse. I just
Well,
don't
if you throw it at a dartboard, you can hit it 6 times. We'll see. I guess we'll move on to the next topic from there. Speaking of Chip Kelly and job security for other coaches, Chip Kelly's 2 seasons in to his tenure at UCLA, signed a 5-year contract back in 2017. Obviously hasn't been off to the hottest start, far from it actually. Hasn't won a non-conference game. Bruins haven't been bowl eligible. There's obviously a lot left to be desired. But with 3 years left on his contract, I don't know, Jack, do you think he makes it all the way through? And if not, when do you think the plug gets pulled?
It's if we start 1-5 or 2-4, like I already said, I don't think he lasts. There was no one more excited for Chip Kelly than me when he came into the school. I thought he was going to be a game changer. I thought when Moore was here, I thought it was kind of rough. I loved the hire of Chip Kelly originally. I can't see it. I really can't see him lasting. I don't know. Your third year is your prove year. And I haven't seen anything from Chip Kelly that has made me think that he can have a competent defense out on the field. And if he has to rely on DTR and the wide receivers, running backs to really carry him again this year, they're going to struggle. And I think with a new AD as well, wanting to probably bring in one of his guys that he knows from his past experience, Boston College, Ohio State. There's some big names there, some big names from those coaching trees. I think Jarman's going to hire a new guy.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but also, I mean, I wrote an article for the Daily Bruin. It was one of our Battle of the Editor ones. My prediction for the year 2020 is that Chip would not make it through the season. The Bruins maybe would improve, but because of drama behind the scenes, I don't know, maybe he gets let go. But since January, so much has changed that has so much wider scope than football. So whether I think that UCLA could go 0-10 in this conference-only spring season, and Chip Kelly would still be there. That wouldn't be the case normally.
No way.
If UCLA went 3-9 in if coronavirus hadn't happened, UCLA goes 3-9 in 2020. I agree. I think he's done. He hasn't proven he can put together good defense, and his offense, his playbook hasn't been really up to snuff what we expected from Oregon and even the Eagles. But I mean, UCLA has lost millions and millions of dollars over the last 2 years from their athletic department, and a lot of that has to do with buying out Jim Moore in 2017 and with buying out Steve Alford from men's basketball. You really can't financially justify paying a huge buyout for a head football coach right now, just with everything that's going on in the world economically. It just doesn't make sense, and I don't think they would be able to get away with it.
I'm reading our chat right now. Someone said UCLA 0-9. There's no way. We win at least one game on a fluke. Chip Kelly hasn't won anything at any level in a half decade. Why is he still employed? I agree, but some of those guys that have proven success at some point in their careers always seem to come back around. I don't know. He probably should have come back at like a lower level, try to build himself up, and then gotten the UCLA job. We didn't do that. It happens. It's a big name coach. You want to go out and make that big splash. You want to try to get fans energized. I think the opposite is happening because of everything that's happened. The pandemic has caused UCLA to really look at their football program and seeing that it is not viable right now. You look at the Rose Bowl the past couple of years, it's like it's a quarter filled at points. It's killer on the financials right now. And Jarman wants to come in, make a splash, and really change things up. Our basketball program's got a good coach. We're looking solid at the end of last year. You've got a guy that built himself up from Cincinnati. There's another name out there from Cincinnati that could be coming in. A guy that has connections to Jarman. That's all I'm saying. I don't see how he lasts. I don't see how he lasts. The money will always be a problem. Money will always be a problem in any way, shape, or form. But if he really wants to make a spot,
but you're talking about
try to get something back. You need to try to get something back. And Chip Kelly is not the way to get it back.
You're saying that football has basically been like a hole in UCLA athletics pocket for the last 2-3 years, which I agree with. You're not wrong. If you look at it, that's objectively correct. But the way to fix that is not to spend another $10+ million on a head coach buyout. You've had too many of those recently. I get it. They want to get out from under Chip Kelly. And if they have another losing season, I understand everyone would, but they've kind of backed themselves into a corner by the way they've organized their spending and the way they've organized other head coaches and how they pay them and how they buy them out. That I don't know if they will be able to buy out Chip Kelly. Not even just PR wise. I don't know if they will have the money to buy out Chip Kelly.
There's always some money somewhere that you can use to justify this. I guarantee a couple donors, if they really asked for it, they really wanted Chip Kelly out, they could do it. How we fill up the Rose Bowl? You get a new coach. You get something to change up the status quo because the status quo is obviously not working. I don't care if $10 million costs us right now. If a couple years down the road, we actually have people filling up the Rose Bowl, we're getting sales, we're getting national TV games. Right now, we're really just killing. We're just dying out there.
But like you said, it's a couple years down the road. This isn't a 1-year fix. You don't fix the issue with attendance and winning by making one giant financial decision all at once to buy someone out. And then maybe the guy you want, if it's Luke Fickell, if it's, I don't know, it could be anyone. Maybe they're not out on the coaching market. You can't commit to firing a guy and paying tons of money when you don't know what lies ahead. If you want to build a football program to last for a long time and build it the right way, you might have to bite the bullet and have a 4th year of bad Chip Kelly football. And so let's say the spring season happens and then they get back and they play next fall and they're mediocre or bad again in Chip Kelly's 4th year. Then I think you can buy him out because it's 1 year, not as much of a buyout, not as much of a financial commitment, and he's only 1 year left. They'll have more time to do a coaching search. But whether it's in December or March, April, May, there's just no way to justify firing Chip Kelly.
Mark my words right now. It's a bowl game season or bust. I don't know if they'll have bowl games or not. Obviously, everything's kind of in flux. But if the Bruins are not 500 by the end of their season, or if they are 1-5 or 2-4 at any point, Chip Kelly is gone. You cannot justify having a 3rd straight losing season for a Chip Kelly coaching.
Yeah, it's obviously not a good look. I feel like everyone kind of agrees with that. But there are so many things wrong with the program. Like I said, it's not you can't just write a check to Kelly and get a get out of jail free card. It's not that easy. There's a lot of issues. How do you win fans back after coronavirus, especially? But how do you kind of get people to buy into the team again? I mean, what does that show about UCLA athletics if they commit a ton of money to one coach, buy him out? They look like they're floundering. They look like they're giving in. They're caving. They just be a mess. They need to stick to their.
We're literally floundering already. We gotta do something to try to put.
To get that reputation, you kind of have to play the long game. Martin Jarmond isn't here to fix UCLA football and have it back on top by 2021. The idea is to have UCLA football and other programs be successful moving forward for 10, 15, 20 plus years.
All right, we got one more question that I want to address. Should we even be talking about playing this season? Yes. The answer has to be yes. Football will be played. Probably not 2020. It looks like they've pushed it back till spring, but it 100% will be played. They cannot financially afford it. Like Sam said, UCLA athletics is in turmoil. They can afford a Chip Kelly firing, but they cannot afford to not play any games at all. TV revenue-wise, Under Armour deal is already blown up. That still has to be resolved. But there's no way that they don't play a season this year. If any UCLA athletics plays, it's football.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest moneymaker. It makes sense. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Got a couple more minutes left here. The question: who's going to replace Joshua Kelly in the backfield? Well, it's refreshing to talk about on the field football. I'll say that. My pick to replace Kelly in the backfield would be the Duke transfer, Britton Brown. That's it. I mean, he had a good season in 2017, but struggled with injuries since then. I don't know, Jack, you have any thoughts?
I mean, you could still put Demetric Felton back there. I think Felton, while he is more of a receiving back, why not just throw him back there? Get a change of pace. Chip Kelly used to run those great offenses at Oregon. I don't know why he hasn't tried to implement a lot more of that, especially with the mobile quarterback like DTR. Throw Demetric Felton out there. Speed. Let's get some speed on this team.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see if he's the next DeAnthony Thomas until probably January at the earliest. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to Jack for helping me host this. The first episode of Bruin Dash winding down here. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Dash Sports TV. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you are following us on Loop for all things Bruin Dash and UCLA football, but then the Pac-12 as a whole, Dash Sports. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you later.